This will be video number 4 in the odds and ends hit and miss engine, and today we're going to do the crankshaft. And as usual, I've cut and squared the blocks for the crankshaft web, and somewhere around here I have the crankshaft itself, and I've cut all the pieces and got them pretty ready to go. I've even marked the ends of this. There's two keyways that belong in here, and that's what we're going to start by doing. I've got a V block here in the vise, and what I'm going to do is put this in, and I've got a line on here so I can get it vertical, and these should be somewhere near in the same orientation, but it's not really critical. So I'm just going to eyeball that line, slide that in there. So first thing we have to establish is the height of the cutter above the material, and I use a 5/1000 feeler gauge, and I just put it in there till it drags. Come down on it. Instead of, I could do it by cutting on the top a little bit, but it's not quite as accurate as this. Okay, that's a good drag right there. And come down the 5/1000s. Whoop. Okay, so that should just be touching. Let's see. Yep, just barely touching. So now what you gotta do is come down half the width of the material and half the width of the cutter. So the width of the material is 3/8, so 3/16. So we go 0.187 is half of 3/8, which is 3/16, and half the width of the cutter. Now this cutter is a 1/16 cutter. They call for a 3/32 cutter, but I like using a 3/16. It looks better on this engine. It's not that big a shaft. So I got to come down 120, 32 thousandths, 0.032. Half the cutter and half of the width of the material is 219. So I'm going to zero this again and come down 219, and that looks good. So now I've got to go in half of a 1/16, which is 32 again. I'll go in maybe 33 or 34 on this. Make it just a little deeper than it's supposed to be. Take cuts of 10 to start. Now I'm going to set up this stop so I don't run into the vise. That completes that side. Now we got to flip it around and do the other side. My line vertical again. Make sure that it's vertical in the right direction. I want this to cut on this side because that's where it is over here. So now all I have to do is come out to 0, and that shouldn't cut. Let's try it. So I'm going to reset this stop because that one isn't quite as long. And finish it off. The reason these two keyways are lined up is when you put the flywheels on, you put the keyway by one spoke. And that way, when you put the flywheels on, the spokes line up across the engine. And that's the only reason you have to do this. This is what we're using today for the plan. This is in the book. So I've cut 2 pieces for the counterweights. And this plan doesn't show a counterweight on this. And on that one, I put them on, and it seemed to make quite a difference. It doesn't vibrate as much when it runs. So this, I'm making these a little bit bigger, and I'm moving them a little bit back, so that should be a little more of a counterweight. And it's just an experiment, but you can always take them off because they're only put on with 1 bolt. You can change the size of them, and that's why I did that. So I made this fixture to hold the thing to face the other side, and I'll get them to thickness. Tap that in a little bit. That is square with this, so what'll happen is it'll square it up if it isn't square. I take it out, make sure there isn't a chip under it. Something's making it wobble. For some reason, that one's wobbling. So for some reason that's wobbling, so I'm going to take another cut on the back of this just to make sure that it's square while it's in there. I thought I had left it where it should be, but it wasn't. Let's see if that cured it. I'm just going to take another face cut off of that. That cured it. I just took a tiny bit out of that, the back of that. For some reason, this got moved from when I first cut it. I want to get this down to somewhere near the thickness of the crankshaft web. I'll show you. And I think that's 5/16 exactly. I've got a line on this that I can see. I'm right to the line now. So the webs measure exactly 5/16. So this is measuring, God, 10, 20, 30, 35 over. So I got to take quite a bit off of that. That should be pretty close now. That's the same thickness exactly. 2 counterweights to thickness. And now what I'm going to do is drill the webs and put the shaft in there. But first I have to put a relief cut in the main shaft. So the timing gear is held on with two screws, 2 set screws. And if you put the set screws right on the crankshaft, you won't be able to pull it off afterwards. So you put a little groove in there, and the set screws go into the groove, and then they bite. So this groove goes in 1 3/8 inches right at the end of that keyway slot. And I'm going to make it a 1/16 wide. And go in 1 3/8. That's 1 3/8 right there. It doesn't have to be very deep. I only put that in at 12 thousandths, just so that when the set screw sits in there, it won't upset the crankshaft. Just removing any burr. So this part is ready to put together. So the 2 webs I'm going to stick together so I can drill through both of them at once and ream them so they be the same. And the way I line the ends up is I just use a magnet, keep those ends aligned while I'm putting some tape on them, and actually I'll just leave that right on there till I get it in the vise. So these are the 2 finished ends. I just stuck a magnet on them to hold them in place. Now I'm going to put a piece of tape on it, and what the tape does is it makes it grip better in the vise. If one of them is a 1/2 thousandths different or something, like, it'll make up for it. Just got a piece on one side, and that'll make it grip tighter in the vise. Just going to put a couple of parallels in there. Just going to check this. That's going to work out good. Nice and solid. I'm just going to put the bluing on one side here. And I'm going to drill right through and ream both of them at once, so they're exactly the same. Okay, so I know this is exactly a 1/2 inch wide, so I'm not going to measure it because of the tape. So I'm going to go up a 1/4 inch, put a scribe mark on it, and then from this end here, I'm going to also do a scribe mark. And this, I actually am going to go up another 15 thousandths because that's the rounded end, and I'm going to grind a little off in case I grind too much. This is actually longer than it shows in the print, 1.5 inches long, and I think the print called for 1.25. I've got these 1/4 inch longer than normal. So I only put 1 prick punch mark in this, and I'm going to use the DRO to get the second one. Okay, that's centered. Now that has to be drilled and reamed out to 3/8, so I got to get a few drills over here. So I got the center, the spotting drill. Now I'm going to drill up, starting with a 1/8 drill, and open this up slowly so it's nice and straight. So that's 5/16. The next thing we're going to do is the U drill, which is the proper drill for the reamer. And then we'll ream it 3/8. Okay, this is standard 3/8 reamer. And then I'm going to ream it 1/1000th oversized for the silver braze. So we're going to move over 11/16, which is 687. Zero this. Going to unlock the table. Just double check my dimension. I'm going to start off with the spotting drill first. Okay. I'll do this exactly the same way. Now, it's a good idea sometimes to stick a plug in that hole if you have one around. So then you know that absolutely cannot move. That's it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to braze them together. The first thing I'm going to braze is this piece, and then I'm going to let it completely cool, and then I'm going to do this one. And the reason I do that is it comes out straighter that way. I think that if you do this one second, what happens is it builds up stress in it, and then when you cut this out, it squeezes in a little bit. So if I do this second, it doesn't seem to happen. So I'll let it completely cool, and then these can move, and then I'll solder them in place. So the spacing of this is 7/16. So what I do is cut a little block and I put it in there, and I'm going to put a little clamp on this to hold it together. And I have a jig here somewhere that I use for soldering, for brazing these. Put this in the vise. Put the crankshaft right in here, and I can braze it. But let me get a couple of clamps here. You can see by squeezing this together, it's making the space right, because I got a 7/16 inch spacer in here, and it holds it upright so I can solder this. Now this I'm going to solder from the outside only. If you solder it from the inside, what will happen is you're going to get solder on this journal, and it's a son of a gun to get it off and keep that thing perfectly round. So if you solder it from the outside, that won't happen. And I'm going to put a little tiny relief on the inside, so if extra solder comes through, it just stays in that relief. So what I'm going to do here is I've match marked these, so I know there's 2 dots there, and I know it has to go together this way. You always want to match mark them, because if you turn them around, there's a tiny bit of difference. It'll make it crooked. So I'm going to take and deburr this. Make a little tiny indent there, and that'll help with the soldering, especially on the inside. It gives it a place to collect. If it goes through and tries to get on the journal, it'll collect first in that little recess. So I'm cleaning the holes out with a steel brush here. You could use sandpaper or anything else you want. I have this brush, so I use it. It's stainless steel. And that'll get a good clean hole in there. The short end is the journal end, and I'm going to take and put the flux on that only. Because this was dried up as usual, so I had to put a little water in it. Put a mess of that in there. Okay. Now, I haven't put any in the bottom side, so I'm going to put this on, and this is just as a guide for now. And now, I'm going to put this up in here. Okay, so there it is. Now, I'm going to put a little bit more flux on this. Okay, now, I'm going to take a rag, a strip of rag, and I'm going to clean that inside journal completely out of flux. Get that cleaned off. So I don't want any solder to creep into that spot, so to clean it off really good here. Yeah, that's good. Now you notice that I've left just a little bit of end sticking out there. That's to allow me to touch that with the solder. If it's flush, it's harder to put the solder to it. So I just leave it like that, and then I mill it off afterwards. I'm going to have to clean that again, I see, because the flux spit out of the hole there, and I don't want any flux on that. That won't happen again because the water's gone out of it. I had way too much water in there, but that doesn't matter. It'll dry out. Now I can see that came through, so that's good for that side. Take much solder, just about a drop is all it would take. So now I'm going to do something else while that cools. I'm not going to run that in water because that'll put stress in it too. So I'll just let that cool off naturally, and then I'll come back and we'll do the other part. So while that's cooling down, I'm going to work on these two weights. Just got to put bluing on one of them, because I can put them together in the vise. Like I said, I only have to mark one of these, and I'm going to take a 1/4 inch off the top. So this is 1 1/4. So I'm going to go down to 1 inch. Nothing fussy, just make it look better actually. Go across there with a line. And now I want a center line here. So now I'm going to mark the center, which is 6/125. I'll drop that again. I got to get that squared again. That's the center. So if I want a 3/8 slot, I want 3/16. So I got to go 1, 50, 60, 70, 87 is right there. That should be the side. of the cutter, because I'm going to run a 3/8 cutter through there. Mill, and I'm just going to saw that 1/4 inch off of there, or almost, and then just mill down to it. That's the handy to have this jig in the saw, so you can do things like this pretty easily. I've got the 2 of them stacked up. That looks good. Okay, there's a 1/4 inch out of it. Now I have to put the notch in. Just putting a piece of double sticky tape in between the 2 of them so that I can handle them easier. I won't have to line them up again. If I put something against this side, when I do this, I can do it. Cut that off with a razor. Well, I'm going to put this vertical, and a good way to do this I found is I put a magnet on the back side here, one of these little flat magnets, and I can put that up there. It sticks pretty good, and then I can line this up square. Once it's square, it should be perfect. Yeah, it is. Now I'm going to get the center again. So the center is 5/125, 5/125. That's the center. I got to go up 187. And there's the notch. Now, the next thing I have to worry about is how deep. It really doesn't matter how deep you go. I like to go almost to the center on these. But the thing I can't show it here because I don't have the crankshaft, it's still hot. But I don't want to go beyond the center because then that subtracts the object of the weights, if you can see what I mean. You want to keep this way out of the center of the crankshaft. I'll show you that when I get to it. So I just want to get this somewhere near square. It doesn't have to be perfect, but what I'm doing is looking at the it's too far. Why are you doing this? This is another way of making sure you've got something in there straight. Just stack up some parallels, and you get, the smaller that ridge is, the easier it is to see if it's level. So while I was looking at this, I realized that I had the wrong end mill in there. This is really supposed to be a 1/2 inch wide, because the webs of that crankshaft are a 1/2 inch wide, not 3/8. I don't know where I got the 3/8 from, but that won't change the setup. I centered it. Okay, there's the last cut. Those are all set. You can take them out of there. I'll put those on the crankshaft when we get them cooled down, and we'll see how they fit. So now I've taken the block out. That's a good sign. This is not squeezed in. That's good. So I'm going to clean these pieces up and then solder it. You want to make sure the joints are good and clean. So I'm going to put the flux on the inside of these and let it soak in a little bit while I clean up the shaft. Okay. I'll wipe the ends off with a rag. Now, the end with the ring in it has to be 2.5 inches in. So we got to measure that. 2.5, 2 3/4. Okay. So now that's good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this back this way, just about the thickness of the web, and put some flux on it. Put some flux in the middle here. Then pull it back, try to get it in place there. Okay. Now I can see a problem here. If I leave that the way it is, it's going to solder my jig right to the thing. I can't do that. I've got to spread this out for this one. Okay. Now, this one I'm going to solder from the inside, just the opposite of the one that I did at the top. So I don't care how much flux I got there, but on the end here, I don't want to leave that extra flux there because that'll make the solder run right out there. 99% of it off of there, so it's a less cleaning. And what do I do with that tape? I mean that, oh, there it is. So this side was 2.5, right? 3/4. Okay. This one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten the solder and bend it and lay it on top of there and just heat it up till it flows through. This will get me a measured amount of solder and I won't be wasting it. And that's all I'm going to use, that little piece for each side. I'll put a bend in it so it stays on there good. Oh, I broke it in half, but that'll stay. I guess it'll be okay. Okay, get over here. Right there. So you can see where the solder is. Now I'll just heat that up from the outside and it'll draw the solder in. While that thing is cooling down, I'm going to take and drill the holes in here, and they got to be counterbored for this side for the head of the screw that I put them on with. So I'm just going to square that right there. And I'm marking this from the inside because I want that bolt to come out right dead center on the web. So what did I say? 625 is the center of this. It's gonna work. Good. Jim wanted to show this again. I think I did this before, but what I do is I line this up in the vise so it's just barely sticking up, right? And I tighten the vise just a little bit, turn it upside down, and push it down. And now they're perfect. They should be level with the top. Or another trick you can do is you can take and you can put something flat on top and just loosen the vise up a little bit. You know, don't loosen it up enough so it falls in there, but just put that on there and you can get it flush. .28 drill bit. What I'm going to do is drill through here with a tap drill. Then I put them on and I mark the web with the tap drill. And then I open these holes up to the clearance size later. The crankshaft is pretty much cooled off now. What I'm going to do is just clean these up with a piece of sandpaper. A very, very fine sandpaper, actually. I mean, cut out the center of the shaft here. As you can see, I didn't get a lot of solder out on the shaft, so it's not a problem to clean it up. Still a little warm. Yeah, run it over under the cold water there. And it doesn't matter if you cool it off now because it's all together. You don't want to do that though when you just got the journal in there. Now you can see that runs pretty true now. After I cut that center out, it should be able to put that back in there and it should run just exactly as true. So this is on number 2. So we'll put it back in the exact same place when I bring it over here after we cut that out and see how that, if the thing is perfectly straight. So when you cut this, you want to make sure you're cutting this part out, the web, not the journal, which I have done before, and it doesn't work too well after that. Now we'll put this back in the lathe and see if it spins. Looks like it's pretty true. Let's just put it around the other way. That's the way it was in there. Yep. It's really good. Now, I've got to level these off. As you can see there, one's a little longer than the other. I'm just going to put it in the mill and level them off. Just going to bring that down till it hits the fall one. Make sure it's tight. Take off 10. I'm just going to clean this up on the sander a little bit. It's got some burrs sticking out from the milling and so forth. And get some of the black off of it. Okay, as you can see, those weights are a perfect fit on there. Just put one on, it'd be easier. And I'm going to have to round the corners. Whoops, get the goo out of there. Have to round the corners of these just a tiny bit so that sits down on there all the way. It doesn't quite hit unless you round those corners just a hair. Now I'm going to transfer the hole onto the crankshaft. And what I'm going to do is just put this set of parallel clamps on there to get it held it in place. Now what I'm going to do is, I know how that goes on there. I'm going to take the prick punch and I'm going to match mark that right now. So this is number 1 and it goes on that way. So I'm going to put a prick punch mark here and one here. Then I'm going to do actually 2 prick punch marks here. And then when I take the other one, mark it the same way. put the marks together. Put the clamp back on it. I gotta make sure I get enough depth in there, so I'm just setting my the dial indicator, because I'm going to go in there about 300 thousandths, and actually I can measure that to see. So I can go in there 375, and it'll just be just at the edge of the shaft. I don't want to drill through the shaft or anything. First place that's hard to top, that's drill rod, and it's been heated up. It could be a little harder. And so I'll just go in 350, 375, and then I'll get a 1/4 inch of thread in there. Now the only thing left to do is open this up to the clearance size for the bolt, and counterbore it for the head. And I'll show you what they look like when they're finished. This video is getting too long. So there's the finished product. As you can see, it spins nicely. There's no binding in it. There's no play in it. Little side by side play, but I like a little side to side play. It lets the connecting rod line up better. And as long as it doesn't clatter, I don't put a shim in there. But if it clatters, sometimes you can hear it knocking back and forth, so you just put a bronze shim in it. But there's the finished product. So that's the end of number 4 for the odds and ends hit and miss. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. Thank you.